What's going on, everyone? Welcome to week 5 of the Axial Honcho budget build. This week, I'm extremely excited to show you what we've got to work on. The first thing we're going to talk about is LiPo batteries, including terminology used in LiPo batteries, and then size, placement, capacity, voltages, and everything that you should kind of think about when purchasing a LiPo for your crawler. The second thing we're going to talk about is the new 3D printed bed corner and taillight combo that I designed and is finally ready to install on this truck. We're gonna start with the LiPos because that's gonna kind of tie back into those taillights when we get there. Now, on the budget builds, I've never included the battery cost as one of the costs for this truck. It's a lot of personal preference, but I wanted to go over some of the options and just some of the broad terminologies that go into purchasing a LiPo. When you're first looking at LiPo batteries, there's two things that are most likely going to jump out at you. The first one is going to be the milliamp rating, which is the overall capacity of the battery. The second one is going to be the voltage, whether that be 2S or 3S, 4S, they go on up. Now, the milliamp reading may be a little bit easier to understand, but the 2S and 3S is something that a lot of people don't know the actual meaning of. Now, you hear people say 2-cell or 3-cell, but that S does not stand for cell. The S stands for series. And what that means is that the nominal voltage of a LiPo battery cell is 3.7 volts per cell. Now, when you take two of those cells and put those in series, you get 7.4 volts nominal. If you put 3, you get 11.1. Now, if you don't know what series or parallel means, you can use a couple of double A's as an example. Now, this battery on itself is a cell. This battery has about a 1.5 volt nominal voltage to it. Now, if you take two of these batteries and you take the positive end of one and put it to the negative end of the other, and then you put a voltmeter to the outside, you'll get 3 volts because you'll have two cells in series, and then the voltages add to each other. And the second thing you're gonna look at most likely is milliamp hours. And really that just means, how much capacity is in that cell. The higher that capacity number, the more runtime you're going to get. And then there's the third thing on batteries that most people don't really understand, and that is the C rating. Now, C ratings, most people look at and they just think the higher the number, the better the battery, which in general is true. But a lot of people don't know how to actually look at that number to figure out how it actually affects what their battery does. The C rating is used to calculate what kind of amperage output your battery is capable of. For example, I'm going to say you have a 5,000 milliamp 20C battery. Now, to calculate the amperage output, you actually need to convert the milliamp hours from milliamps to amps. Just like millimeters to meters, you simply divide it by 1,000. So you take that 5,000 milliamp pack, divide it by 1,000, and you get 5. Then you take the amp hour reading and you multiply it times the C rating. So if you take that 5 amp hours, multiply it by 20, you get 100. Your battery is capable of 100 amps of output. Now, what do you do with that information? Well, if you're buying an ESC that's capable of 90 amps or 120 amps or 160 amps, you should probably have a battery that is capable of feeding that ESC. Now, at the same time, you could be running that 160 amp ESC with a typical 35 turn brush motor that's really only going to pull 35 amps. Just because you have a 160 amp ESC doesn't mean it's going to draw 160 amps. The motor is only going to draw around 35 amps. So as long as you have a battery that's capable of providing that amount of power with a safe amount of overhead is a good idea, then you're going to be fine. But if you bought a combo together that's a 160 amp combo, you better take a look at what batteries you're buying to make sure that they're going to be safe for your setup. There is one dirty detail to get into with that C rating thing though, and that is that some companies just flat out lie. They may say that it's a 100C or a 150C battery, when in reality that may just be a trademarked slogan and not the actual C rating. So buyer beware. It's just one of those things that there isn't standards put in place on these battery companies. You can be educated all you want, but when some companies may just lie about their ratings, what can you do? So in the interest of doing this video today, I picked up 2 new batteries for this truck to talk about. Now, these 2 batteries that I picked up are from Hobby Star. I actually picked these up from a local company here in Sacramento called rcjuice.com. And these batteries were super reasonably priced. I got this 5200 3S 45C pack for $39.99, and then this 3000 milliamp 30C 3S LiPo pack for $25.99. Now, I picked up a small pack and a larger pack to kind of discuss a little bit about battery placement, weight bias, and center of gravity. Now, I actually have a pretty good amount of runtime on this Honcho, and I've been having a blast with it. But one thing that I've noticed while driving this is that when I'm running a large battery pack in that front-mounted battery tray, it does have a tendency to want to have the ass end pass the front end when on a steep descent. It's just what happens when you have a heavy front weight bias. Depending on how long your trail rides are, if you're running a 1.9 like this with a stock brush motor, a 5200 milliamp pack may get you through all day. So if I'm in the mood where I just want to throw in the battery, close the lid on the Honcho, and just go run the trail all day, this pack is gonna be what I go for. Now, if I wanna go shoot a video where I wanna show the maximum technical abilities of the Honcho, then I may throw in this 3000 milliamp pack, because it's not that the battery sits high in the Honcho, it's that it does sit a little bit further up and it sits forward. Now, that front weight may be good for when you want it to be able to pull the front end over something, but if you're trying to show off side hilling ability or descending ability, then a lighter pack that doesn't add as much weight up high and keeps it a little bit more balanced front to rear, then those lighter packs have some advantages. And also, 3000 milliamps is not a little amount. That's still a pretty decent size battery, so you're still gonna get a pretty good amount of runtime out of just 3000 milliamps. I am actually going to start making the change over to XT60. For some reason, I just prefer these battery connectors more now, and I'm just gonna slowly start converting things over. So while I had the batteries coming from RC Juice, I picked up a 5-pack of XT60s. And I already planned on doing a little bit of soldering today anyway, and that is going to bring us into the next part of this video. So these 2 parts I have in my hand are my new Honcho bed corner and taillight combo. This is something that I've been working on for a little bit, and I'm super excited to finally get to show everyone. While looking at the Honcho and trying to figure out how to improve the looks, I came up with the idea to kind of fill in this back bed corner and make it look a little bit more complete. I had decided that I was gonna come up with a 3D printed part to fit back there. And while I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, I should add some light buckets. But then at the same time, I thought about the abilities of 3D printing and how I could maybe go a little bit more outside the norm of a normal light bucket by adding some translucent 3D printed parts to it. And that's how I came up with this weird angled LED taillight style design. Now, I designed these parts and had them printed at Shapeways, and I've got the links for the parts in the description below. The 2 bed corners come as kind of a part sprue that you need to trim off. I simply then took a little bit of a Sharpie and kind of filled in where I trimmed them just to make sure that you couldn't see any of the white that lays underneath of those parts. Same goes for the taillight lenses. You simply trim those off and then they can be put into place. Now, I believe that it's probably possible to polish these lenses for a more crystal clear look, but I'm gonna leave the frosted look to them. Then I'm going to glue the lenses into the housing with a little bit of shoe goo. Shoe goo is easily removable if I wanted to remove them in the future for any reason. So now that we've got the lens glued into that rear bed corner, we need to talk about the LED light itself. A couple weeks ago, we discussed removing these LEDs from the rear cross member of the chassis. Now, these LEDs can be removed from this cross brace and then relocated into this bed corner and just glued in place. This translucent lens does not need a direct LED placed behind it, and it actually looks better if it's kind of indirect. It helps it glow better. So that's the first option. There's also another option if you want a little bit more light, and that's the option that I'm going to go with. Now, I had purchased some inexpensive red LED strips a while back. These are cuttable into 1-inch sections, and then you simply solder on a new pigtail. These LED strips are designed to work with 12 volts, and a fully charged 3S LiPo is around 12.4 volts. So these will be perfect. For these, again, I don't want them directly firing into that lens. So I'm gonna put them kind of down into the bottom corner of the back side of this housing, firing towards that rear lens, but not directly behind it. Now, since these are designed for 12 volts, I need to wire them all the way up to that battery plug, however. And at that time, that's when I'm going to do that swap over to the XT60 plug. The actual installation of this rear bed corner and tail light assembly is incredibly easy and actually only takes one screw to complete. All you have to do is remove the one lower screw that holds this rear bed strut into place, slide that out of the way, put the taillight housing in place, and then replace that strut, and this thing is held in there nice and solid. If you want a little bit more security, you can get a longer 2mm screw and replace that furthest most bed screw that holds that Lexan insert into place. But I don't really find it necessary at this point. We'll see if these ever get loose while I'm running. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the wiring install with these 12-volt LED strips. So after a few minutes of wiring and a really simple install on those new rear bed corners, I'm extremely pleased with how these turned out and how they changed the look of the rear of the Honcho. As I mentioned, these were printed from Shapeways. They're available from the links below. You can pick them up yourself if you'd like. I also use those LED strips. Now you have to buy those in a large quantity, so it's not necessarily something that everybody needs to do, but you can use that stock LED rear taillight pigtail if you want to get this done without spending anything extra. I'll include links to everything that I used for this one below if you would like to go with the full 1-inch LED strips as well. Now, as far as the giveaway from last week, the pre-runner bumper was a far and away winner as far as which bumper was chosen to stay on this truck. Super happy with that because obviously I was already running it, and if it lost, you were gonna get a beat up bumper. But I'm gonna choose the winner of that raised narrow front bumper and the rear bumper setup, and I'll list them in the description below. So make sure and check that description, see if your name's there, and if so, shoot me a message and I'll get those bumpers mailed out to you. I want to thank everyone for the super positive comments that we've got so far. Matt and I are both having a blast. Make sure to go check out Matt's week 5 video. It's linked in the description below as well. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you haven't. And also go subscribe to Matt over at Scale Builders Guild if you're new to his channel. And with that, we'll see you guys next Monday for the Scale News update and next Wednesday for another week of the Honcho budget build. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.